massive one, 62 houses in a street. We had probably getting on for 60 metres of brick walls, retaining brick walls out the back to deal with it as well.
Yeah.
So we needed, and we brought a whole bunch of people in. Anybody here come to that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's about a dozen.
Kind of mad site, wasn't it? Yeah, a little bit mad. Sites aren't often like that, but as a result, you know, we've done something pretty amazing there. We just had the figures, compiled figures in, over 9 million people watch the programme. So that's 9 million people who now understand what it's like for soldiers and people in your kind of age who've gone out there and got shot, damaged, and have to live the rest of their lives that way. And they've got a better chance of getting on with their lives because of the things that are happening around the country now. And you guys have been part of that. Ian's been part of it, helping us down with all of these different builds that we do. So the building industry is very strong, getting stronger now. It went through 4 years of difficulty, but even during that time, you know, you can make a living, especially as a bricklayer. Everybody needs a bricklayer at some stage, and even the new methods of building, like timber frame and so on and so forth. Normally, you're putting a brick skin around it, aren't you?
Yeah,
or block and render. And
yeah, people aesthetically still like a brick.
Yeah.
You know, when they look at a building, they don't want to see cladding, they want to see brickwork. So we've got wonderful futures in front of us as bricklayers and self-employed bricklayers and artisans as well, because the brickwork is a feature. It is a feature at the end of the day, and it's a dying feature. But what we're trying to revive here is something and put it into you know, prosperity and get you lads having a great future after this.
Well, I gave the Brick Awards, the awards away in the Brick Awards in London last year. There were 2 major buildings in London that you would normally expect to be made of steel and composite and things that were actually made of bricks. It had 16 different types of bricks handmade in formers. So the old-fashioned skills are coming back in again, and people are actually beginning to value that too. So there's a huge opportunity here, and it's not just a matter of, it's a slow start. These things always are as an apprenticeship. Slightly slow start, but then you're guaranteed a really good living, and it can be as big as you want it to be, depending on how hard you want to work and how good you want to be and how reliable your work is. The truth is as well, the one thing I would say to you is always take pride in your work. You can actually learn the basic skills and enough to get away with it, but that means you're never going to get repeat bookings. What you actually want to do is actually have pride in your work and always think, if that was in my garden, if that was my back wall, if that was the back of my house, would I be happy with it? If you do it to that degree every time you do it, then word goes about and you get more and more work and you get better and better work, and then you're booked up, and you know. But like, people make the mistake when a lot of people talk to me about booking builders and they say, oh, it's, you know, typical, I got this builder and he came in and he didn't do a very good job for me. And I say, well, how much in advance did you book him to come and do the job? And they went, oh, well, when I had the money, I wanted him to start in 2 weeks. Well, if anyone's available to start in 2 weeks, they're probably not very good.
No, absolutely.
Because they're busy somewhere else. So you should book in advance, because the good builders are busy. And you know, the quote, one had a quote, and then so we found this bloke who gave us a quote £1,000 cheaper than everybody else. I thought, well, yeah, what did you expect? You went for the cheapest bloke who was available and nobody had booked him. He's not really going to be that good, is he? The point I'm saying is that if you actually take pride in your work and you do good work every time, no matter who it is you're doing the work for, word gets about, and that means that you'll be wanted and work will be available for you all the time. The good builders survived the last recession. The good builders all got through it.
Yeah, me. Yeah.
You?
And you.
Yeah,
Even you?
I must admit, Nick, towards the end I was on my knees with it. You know, we were wobbling a bit, but we got through. You know, but that guy that Nick was describing as the apprentice, who started off laying bricks at a college and then built his way up, and he was a single bricklayer and then got a gang together, and then he got 1 or 2 lads working for him, and then he started building houses and property developing. That was me. That was me, actually. I started in exactly the same place, yeah? And nobody's ever given me anything. Nobody said, here's a few bob, or nobody has ever given me. My father gave me the tools to do the work with and the opportunity, and then the other institutions and opportunities that came along I took, yeah? And that's what we're trying to give to you. You've all got that same opportunity from this point onwards to go out and have a great living and a great career, yeah?
Yeah, and the other thing is that there are 2 people who go through life. One is the kind of person who it's always somebody else's fault they didn't quite make it. And the other is the person who, no matter what comes their way, actually they make it anyway. And that's because you have to take control of your own life. And that's That's everything from at home, or if you have anger problems. It'd be fair to say, I don't think Chris would mind me telling you that Chris, our plasterer, was a real pain in the arse and a difficult kid when he was younger, and was told he wouldn't amount to anything, got into trouble a few times. The point was that when he got the opportunity, he took control of his own life and stopped blaming other people for, oh, I could have done this if it wasn't for that person, if it wasn't for this person, if it wasn't for my mum getting in the way, if it wasn't for my dad leaving, if it wasn't for the... You know, there's lots of reasons that you can actually say, that's why I didn't make it. The truth of the matter is, if you don't actually succeed, it's because you didn't try. You can take control. When you actually learn a skill like this, you can take control of your own destiny, of your own learning ability, and you can then look after the people you really care about. You can have a good life, you can do the things you want to do, live a life less ordinary. It's down to you. So grab it, make the most of it, work hard, be proud of the work you do, and I'm sure you'll do very well. It's a good start. I mean, it's cracking. I remember seeing anything like this when I was young.
They've not. There is some level twos, or who have just on the second year, but the first year group who all came in when we first, started September. So we're in November, it's the start. You're looking at 2.5 months, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the progress they've made, the exception of some exceptional, young talent here. And all I tell them is focus on what you're doing, watch, listen and learn. And you've got a life to make big money. And that's the goal for them.
Yeah, keep an eye out when you're on sites as well, because the guy who appears to be wearing a Panaka pair of boots, what appears to be a pair of swimming shorts, 2 hats under his crash helmet, and looks like he just wandered in as a tramp, he'll be the best builder on site. He'll be your old style builder. You watch what he does and how he does it, and work alongside him. You listen to the older boys, honestly. Sam, it's really funny. I was talking about this the other day on the military build that we did up in Manchester, where we had our main contractor, Kia, was stood on the gate and we're asking for everybody's tickets. I mean, actually, in the end, we actually managed to get insurance to cover the other guys, because a lot of the old school builders, the guys who learnt it from their dads, from their granddads, and so on and so forth, they're actually not ticketed.
No.
But they're the best builders you'll ever see. So I thought I knew everything about the whole world when I was your age. I'm sure you're fairly confident you know a lot more than the old fuddy-duddies that you work with sometimes. But listen, watch, and learn, and you'll pick up stuff really quickly. And they'll teach you all kinds of quick things and extra little knowledge that will really help you along the way. And the other thing is, when you get your spare time, if you can, so there's a little old lady down the road needs a wall's fallen down and in the street, why don't you go and offer to actually rebuild it for her? She can't afford to do it, give you a chance to actually get your bricklaying skills back in, the bricks are lying there. Take a weekend out, do something good in the community. You'd be actually surprised how soon you actually start to get better at what you do, because you're getting the repetition and the opportunity to do something. And you'll start to earn more as a result. You also feel better about yourself.
Yeah, it's a great attitude. It's a great attitude to have. And just to add to that, when I take somebody on, I look for attitude. I don't always look for qualifications. I look for a great attitude. Somebody who really wants it. Because if you don't really want it, it'll never happen. So it's the people, it's the guys, it's the girls that really want to achieve it, to achieve things that I look for, that will go beyond in life.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we're interesting. We're talking about that, like maths and English. Now, for a lot of people that they find like Chris and Jules, my 2 lads, they actually left school without any qualifications at all. And if I ask them now if they're any good at maths, they'll tell you they're no good at maths. But then I'll say, look, there's a 12-foot wall by a 10-foot wall, and they'll go, yeah, that's 5 square metres. So they're doing maths in a different way. It's learned maths. So the reason I'm saying this is because if you think that maths is difficult, or you struggle with maths or English, don't be put off by it. You learn within the context of the job you do, and you will learn after a certain amount of time that a square metre is so many bricks or so many blocks, 10 blocks to a square metre. You will learn those numbers, and those numbers will start to work with repetition in your head, and you will learn enough maths. It's worth doing it, because when you go to somebody to quote for a job, you don't want to be saying, and they're measuring it and then standing there and looking like you don't really know. What you really want to do is look at the wall and go, okay, that's like, that's 16 square metres, that's such, and you know what you charge per metre, so and these figures, it's a bit like playing darts. You don't have to be good to play darts, you get just used to what the numbers are, yeah? And the same with English, really, too, because the fact of the matter is you are working and pitching for jobs. So you can either stand there and go, I'll try and get back Monday or whatever. It doesn't instill much confidence, so they're not going to pick you to do the job. Learn to say hello, learn to play the game a little bit and come across reasonably decent. Tidy up after you, keep a clean site. Just word of mouth will get you there.
Well, that's what I say. In here, we stress on health and safety, keeping your work areas clean and tidy. It's important, very important. It not just in the college work area. It's when you go out and do work as well.
People want a tidy site, and there's no reason to destroy the place that you're working. It's just laziness, and it's much easier to finish at the end of the day when you've kept the site clean all day. It's a bit like cooking a meal. If you actually don't wash up as you go along, you cook your meal and then you think, oh jeez, I've got to wash everything up. So I was the worst person in the world for that. So whenever I cook now, I'm obsessive. I use an implement, I wash it straight away whilst I'm cooking. Okay, when I get to the end of the meal, I haven't got anything to wash up. It's the same with a site really. If you clean up every hour, you give a little quick tidy and a little brush, a little sweep, get everything back in order again. And when you finish at the end of the day, you're 5 minutes from going home. Plus, you haven't got lots of old stuff that's dried on the floor and stuck to everything.
It's just discipline. It's just absolute discipline. Yeah.
And I was the least disciplined person in the world. You have to get used to it. You have to teach yourself certain things. Like for me, like my keys in my house go in a certain place every time I go through the door and every time I go out. I have to do those things because I'm too thick to remember where I put them down. I've got to keep doing those things. Like I used to come through the door when I was living on my own for the first time, and I'd pick up the mail. I'll do that in a minute, and I'd end up 2-3 months later with a red letter saying they were going to close me down. So now, like my wife thinks I'm hilarious. I walk through the front door, pick up the mail, and before I unpack or do anything else, I walk to the kitchen. I go, got to do that. I've got to write that. Right, check for that. Got to do that. Got to do that. And I'll clean it in the bin. Done. That's my mail done. You have to. If you're going to work in a work environment, the biggest trick is because you've been with family, you've done that kind of stuff for you. You've got to start yourself having routines that you get into. Then you people go, geez, he's good. Well, we'll use him again.
I was only talking to my two lads this morning about that, and I dropped my son off at both my sons off at Derby College this morning, and they've got the satchels and the bags and whatever. And I says, make sure that it's all in order and it's all tidy. I says, because I judge people by that. If I see somebody's desk and it's a mess, or if I see somebody's work area and it's a mess, and if I see your bedrooms and it's a mess, because both their bedrooms are like a tip. I says, you know what that means? I says, because that means that's a mess as well, because you're not in order. So tidy mind, tidy desk, tidy work area, tidy mind.
The one exception to that is tracky bottoms and either bricklayers or plasterers.
Yeah.
They are still the de rigueur wear, no matter all the. I mean, these trousers are great and stuff. But to be honest, you don't take offence to plasterers coming on site in tracking bottoms because that's what they've worn since time immemorial. So. Yeah. So look, nice to chat to you all, lads. Good luck with it all.
Excuse me, has anyone got any questions at all?
Yeah.
Any questions? Anyone want to ask anything? One?
Because it's kind of complicated, but the long and short of it was I played rugby when I left school, and I wanted to go and play abroad. I wanted to go and try and play rugby in different countries. So I used to work on building sites as a labourer. So in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Samoa, and then back through the UK. And my family all came from a building background, but I decided I didn't want to get into it. But it was a way for me to earn some money, because in those days rugby wasn't professional. It was a way for me to earn some money. And then years later, then I became a journalist and went off and did other things. And years later, they offered me a building programme. And when I came to do the building programme, it was obvious that my lot were never ever going to be television friendly. They just aren't. You ask them to do something and they go, yeah, no, well, I'm not doing that, and they just wander off. So the only way to do the programme was to make it more like a building site. So we just let them get on with it and filmed them like a building site and filmed them all taking the piss out of each other, and it just turned into a programme that way. Since when, over the last 16 years, well, the first 8 years we're all doing little ones that you see on the home channel. There's 8 years now we've been doing the big ones. We added it up the other day. We've now built just over £14 million worth of houses and hospices and respite centres for thousands and thousands of families all over the country, all of whom wouldn't have had anywhere else to go if they hadn't been doing it. So I'm not saying that for me, but what's interesting about that is I've worked with 22,000 builders over the last 8 years, 22,000 builders all over the country, all of whom gave their time for free. And all of whom, at the end of giving us 9 days for free, all come up and go, that was fantastic, I really enjoyed that, best site I've ever worked on.
Absolutely.
So it's been good because it's represented the construction industry. Whereas the construction industry generally on TV is representing things like cowboy builders, road traders and Cowboy Trap, and even on Grand Designs. Even on Grand Designs, the constructor's always walking off the job. Well, the bad builders in the construction industry are like 0.5% of, half of 1%. And yet the TV coverage is 80% bad. So our programme has done a lot in terms of just showing the industry for what it's capable of, and I think that's why we've had a lot of support from the industry as well. But that's a long answer to a short question.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You know, like the war era,
Yes.
how emotional do you get when you see some of those guys?
Oh, massively. When Lamin, I'd spent weeks talking to Lamin and interviewing Lamin, and he's such a hard case, I mean, he was like proper. I mean, he had both legs and his arm blown off, and was suffering PTSD. He wakes up in the night screaming, imagining he's falling from 40 feet in the air, landing on his back, and then people are trying to stab him on the ground. And the reason is because when he got blown up, there are reflections of when he got blown that high in the air. And when he landed, they were trying to stab morphine into him to try and get him painkillers. So and every night he has that too. So this man has never become emotional. And then when we rebuilt the street and walked him down the street, I was really taken aback by that he just suddenly went to bits. And the reason he went to bits was because he suddenly actually felt for the first time since he'd returned that the people in this country give a shit, whereas he thought before that they didn't. And that was a massive thing for him, that he suddenly thought, and all of the veterans actually felt that people cared because builders came out from all over the country to help out in that. And I do get emotional about it, but I always, when I do, I try to not to in front of camera, and if I am going to get emotional in front of camera, I get out of the shot because I don't think at that stage the programme's about me, it's about the people that we're building for, so I try to make sure that I'm not in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what we're trying to get at, and Nick's telling you, it's how worthwhile everything they do. It's there for a purpose, and like
Yeah, but we couldn't do it if it wasn't for the builders who come and help us and give up their time for free. And we can't micromanage them. So we've got like 350 builders during the course of a week on one 3-bedroom house. We can't work around and see what they're all doing to make sure that what they're doing is right. We have to rely on the fact that they know what they're doing, and they've got other builders around them. So they're not going to leave their little bit until it's 100% right. They take real pride in what they're doing, which is what I was saying to you before. When you do a job, it doesn't matter if it's for a little old lady and nobody's ever going to see it at the back of her house, or it's something in the, something at some brand new like a place like this where it is going to get seen. You should never walk away from it unless it's good enough that you would have it in your front room. Is that good enough for me? Would I do that for my mum or dad? Is that, always take that level of pride in it, and you'll always do all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is how we do it too.
Well, thank you for coming
Fantastic.
today, Nick. It's been a pleasure.